Hey, welcome to Combat Vet Vision. This is Combat Vet Vision. This is a place where we as combat vets get to tell our stories. We get to tell what's happening. We get to express a lot of different things. I get a lot of have a lot of different guests, our combat vets, our sponsors, supporters, volunteers, different people that really want to be able to help educate the public as well as provide some information to our veterans, our combat veterans, families, whatever that might look like. And today, my guest is Sam Askins, good buddy of mine from Camp Hope. I met him through Camp Hope, doing a lot of different things. As that, he's a combat vet, entrepreneur. He went through a lot of programs himself, getting through some help himself and going through some processes, as well as still providing help and support for combat vets. And he stepped out, and he's now on doing his own thing in the oil business, doing some incredible things in that and other things. So, hey, Sam, welcome aboard. Thanks a lot for being on deck. This is your story, brother. It's good to hear from you. Good to see you. This, we were talking right before. This gives us a chance to reconnect. We haven't talked in a while, and it's great to see you. Great to know you. I've always looked up to you as one of the mentors. You have a lot of history with the PTSD Foundation of America. You have a lot of history of starting, the process of that place and really getting it going. But before we get to that, let's go back to, what was it that made you join the Army, and how did you get through that, and some of these things that really motivated you through that, and the story of your Army career and getting all through that, and then transition. We'll talk about how difficult transition can be.
Sure. Thanks for having me, Aaron. For those of you on this show that don't know who I am, which is probably everybody, I was one of the first 4 founding members of Camp Hope, PTSD Foundation of America. I was one of the 2 authors of just about all of the literature that we use surrounded the Combat Trauma Healing Manual and the support groups and stuff like that, the preamble and all of that. I was the author of all that. It wasn't for me, right? I just knew that was something that had to be built around for the foundation and around the program. Just a little bit about me, little three-minute blurb. I am from a small town in East Texas, in the Piney Woods of East Texas, Willis, Texas. I grew up here in Willis. I like to tell everybody that I grew up in this just world belief system where it was all perfect and everything. I called it Jesus, Mama, and Apple Pie. When we were kids, I'd be out until dark, and then my mom would literally just stick her head out the door and scream for us, and we'd come down the road. Grew up out in the country, really small town, but this town it's really amazing. Willis is just an amazing place. There's some really famous people that come out of my county, Montgomery County, which is Conroe, Willis, Huntsville. It's all pushed into one. But we've got people that you guys would know, like the Luttrell brothers, the congressman, Morgan and Marcus, the lone survivor, a couple really famous country music artists, Cody Johnson. And, we're real conservative around here. And so, back when I was in school, our football coaches basically were our surrogate fathers, and they would literally just kind of guide us where we needed to go as productive members of society. And they used to always tell us, you can either flip burgers, join the military, or go be somebody else, right? But you have choices, but you get to choose. And Aaron, you and I were talking about earlier about how this whole process, none of it has been easy, right? None of it is easy. And we were talking about how we choose our hard, right? And for those of you that aren't in a military circles, and don't understand, we always talk about, like the choose your own adventure books. And when I was young and a private in the military, that's how I saw everything. We just picked a number and opened a chapter and started reading, right? Because the military was one of those places. It didn't matter what door you opened, you were going somewhere. So, I just, growing up, I didn't really, everything was really perfect for me. I'm not going to lie and say it wasn't. We had our problems as a family, but that's just country living. And when I graduated high school, it wasn't because I was this great student or anything. No, I was a troubled teen. I was bored. I was bored with school, and I really was bored with where I was at. And I really wanted to go travel and see the world. So I joined the military. And it was funny. The reason that I joined the military is my best friend, who is now my business partner currently. We were doing a big piece of stupid out there chasing girls and drinking and having a good time. That upper middle class sheltered life out here in East Texas. And my best friend, he joined the Marine Corps, and his mom was a teacher, and she's from the Carolinas, so she's got a real thick accent. And we took him, put him on a plane for boot camp, Marine Corps boot camp. And on the ride home, it was me and his girlfriend and his mom. And his mom looked back and she said, "Sam, what are you going to do with your life?" And I said, "Well, hell, Stella, I don't know. I have no idea." I was working at a golf course, and I think I was taking one class at the local community college. And so I'm back there with Chris's girlfriend. We're just chit-chatting away, and the car stops, and we look up, and we're in front of the recruiting office in Conroe, Texas. And she goes, "Hold on just a second. I'll be right back." Well, I thought she had left something with the recruiter. I wasn't paying any attention. And she went into the Army recruiting station, even though her son had joined the Marines. I still wasn't paying attention. And she walked back out with the recruiter, and he walked up to the car, and she said, "Sam, you see that nice man right there with that red beret on? He's going to take you home today. And do me a favor, don't come back to my house until you've made something of your life." And I literally walked out and walked into the recruiting station. And 3 weeks later, I was leaving for MAPS. And that is why I joined the military. And, I went, and I did. And I went, signed up on the 11 X-ray Ranger option, and wound up staying airborne infantry for 17 and a half years. And, in that, learning a lot about myself and a lot about who I was as a soldier, who I was as a human. The military was a positive experience for me, 100%. So,
wow.
Where are we going?
Well, that's a great story. Yeah. So from there, you joined the military, you got into the Army, got into the Rangers, and when was that? And did you know that we were already, in combat, or was that
no, I joined
pre-combat?
the military, and that was pre-combat. When we were dreaming of combat. I'm almost 50.
91.
Yeah, in the 90s when we were singing songs about. I joined actually in 97, but when we were singing songs about hey, go to war, anybody start a war, and all that.
Yeah.
No, the reason that I went into the infantry is because I had a best friend too. I had both of my best friends both left for the military, and one of them went to the airborne infantry. He went to the Ranger Battalion. The other one went to the Marines. And I thought about it, and I was like, man, I'm kind of chunky. I don't really want to go into the Marine Corps because, back then, they were rough on a fat kid. So I went into the infantry not knowing that they were rough on fat kids too, right? And so my first in basic training, I lost about 90 pounds. And, my mom didn't even recognize me at graduation. I walked right past her, and she had no idea who it was. I look like a golf tee because I have this giant head. And so it was just a little skinny body and this giant head. It was kind of funny. But, I spent a lot of time there. I got real lucky on how I wound up going to Iraq and who I went to Iraq with. I got individually augmented, basically voluntold that I was going to go to Iraq in 2004 with Multinational Security Transitional Command Iraq. And that was under the direct command of General David Petraeus. He was our commander. I was every morning. He walked out every morning and had something great to say to us, told us not to die and to be good soldiers. And, for 500 days, we ran the roads doing what he needed us to do, which was get these, little units set up all over Iraq and, keep everybody safe to and from. And that's what we did. And it was wild. And I had a lot of fun, but it was definitely dangerous and it was definitely wild. But, you asked me to talk about that transition. Well, once you
Well, you know
become
what? You know
a
what? You know what? Before we go to that transition, you mentioned something. It's maybe hard for society to kind of look at. It's easy for us to say how there's something fun about being in combat, and I will say it's hard, and the deaths, the craziness, that part's not fun. There's a lot of things that aren't, but there are some really awesome, fun things about it. There's some intense moments, the adrenaline rush, there's a win mentality. It's like a sport of kinds. It's really hard to kind of explain it in a lot of terms, but the camaraderie of our brothers that are right there with us all the time, and we're just kind of doing this mission all the time, and we want to believe we're doing really good things, right? And when you think about all these cool things that you got to see, like kids getting their school back in order. And that's really what I got to see. Some other things that were really kind of important to see, water systems getting back in place, different things that were kind of important that we take for granted here in the United States. It's just common stuff like sewage systems working, water working, electricity working all the time. Over there, we're seeing that stuff getting set up, seeing that stuff getting better established. And it was really kind of fun to see things working. And there's other things that were fun. You could talk about that, but people don't really recognize. I'll be like, he said it was fun. How does that translate? And it's hard to translate that, right?
I'll translate that. All right. Because my experience. All right. So we have to remember that every service member and men and women over there have a different perception. Every human on this planet has a different perception of the world around them. And we forget that. Right. So
Right.
to you got to see some really good moral and virtuous things that we were doing over there. And, I mean, if we're going to talk about morality and the good things, of course, man, I joined the military thinking that is what I was going to do, that I was going to uphold that just war belief system and that peace for the United States of America and all that stuff that I believed when I joined was true. And, but when I was over there, and this is going to sound kind of morbid, but it is what it is, and I am who I am.
It is.
I 100% was there for the gore. I was 100% there for my men. I was 100% there because I had been in the military for 14 and a half years at that point. And those 14 and a half years at that point were 100% all training leading up to why we were there. Right. So, I became over there kind of a functioning wild ass robot is basically what I am. You default to your training the entire time you're there. Your men, right? Well, to expound on what you're talking about, you get to the point where your men are your family. And if you're in a leadership position, they are your children, basically. You're looking at these young 17, 18, 19, 22-year-old men, right? And you're not much older. I mean, what was I, 25, 26 when I was over there in charge of the whole squad? Because
I joined in 91. So yeah, it was 2003
when
we went in. Yep.
Yeah. And I mean, literally, I had a 17-year-old from Saipan, English second language. The only reason that he was even there is because we liberated his family in World War II. And when we went into Iraq, he joined, right? Just to give back. And, I mean, there as much of the evil stories that you hear about our giant war machine, there are good stories on the back end of young kids from Saipan whose parents remember being liberated as young kids, and their willingness to serve. That when you meet men like that, it makes you want to be like that, right? They're there to honor their heritage and our sacrifice, and it just makes you want to take care of them even more, right? So yes, you do get addicted to, in some form or fashion, to that lifestyle. It's your life, right? Like when you're a young man, you train and train and train and train and train. And if you get it wrong, you get punished. And then you go back to training. And if you get it wrong, you get punished again. And it gets to the point where it is just there. It's just what we do. It's literally like breathing. And, I don't even, nowadays, it's hard for me to even pick up a rifle, right? Because it goes right back into the crook of my arm. It goes right back to rhythmatic breathing. And, I just kind of look at it and think, those were fun times when I was young. We were soldiers once and young, right? Like now I know what that really means, right? And
Yeah,
it
yeah.
it is.
There was a lot of things that you hear about them, and you're like told about them, and you feel it. You're trained for it. You train for it, and then you finally get to know what it means.
Yeah,
And it
exactly.
was the one thing I told one of my guys. He was in for a short time. He's like, "Hey, man, I finally got to help a Marine get loaded onto this helicopter and fly out of there." And I'm like, man, I've been waiting 13 years to play in the Super Bowl, kind of thing,
Right?
like
Yeah.
we train, and we finally go to we train for combat. This is really what it's about. It's not like it's inbred to us to get ready because you're going to go to combat and feel like you need to go there, but some of us look forward to doing it, and I did too, and I think those that did, we really thrived in it and kind of took it upon us to make it our mission to make it the best that we could. And
Yeah.
there's a lot of gore in it, there's a lot of bad things, there's a lot of things that the burden of combat's mine, so America doesn't have to deal with it. I mean, I'd rather have it be me, because I signed up for it. That's what we signed up for, and that's so America can stay in its freedom bubble and not have to do it. But somebody has to do it. Somebody has to defend the wall of freedom, and then somebody has to step outside of that wall of freedom from time to time. And when you're in that, you just have to go, well, I'm in the valley of death, and I'm just going to accept that I'm dead. And you may or may not come back to the United States and be in that freedom bubble again, not in the fashion that you were. You
Oh,
hopefully come
there's
back
no way.
alive. Hopefully you
You
come
don't
back
come.
alive,
You don't come
but you
back.
come
Yeah,
back
you
different.
don't
You
come
come
back
back
and hop
different.
back in the bubble. No, the bubble's gone. All
Yeah,
right. Now that
it's
you say
different.
that,
It's
we
definitely
can talk
different.
about the transition. I don't see the bubble anymore. I used to live in the bubble, and now when I see people that live in the bubble, they look very strange to me. Right? I just good for them for being able to live in that non-player character lifestyle to where they don't have to worry about anything. But I think that the problem is that we are programmed as a society, and anybody that says we are not just needs to pay attention. Right? We are programmed as a society, and what happens is when combat vets go to combat, something in that programming breaks down. Right? You can't deal with that kind of trauma and stay programmed. Right? So then we come back and we're not programmed anymore. We don't see things the way we were seeing them, and there's a fundamental void in between our reality and the programmable reality that everybody wants you to buy into. Right? So that is what most men and women, when they get out, especially if they're career, right? That those 2-3 year Marines that go in, they just go and they deploy, and then they come home and they're out, and they've done 3.5 years. Yes, they're struggling. I'm not discounting a damn thing about their service. I'm just saying, when you are who you are, when the military is your identity for 20 years, and you put that suit on every morning, that day that you finally take that suit off, it's kind of like your safety blanket goes away, and you're sitting there looking, because they just send you home, right? It's not a, hey, you got a years of classes and this is what you need to look for. No, man, they start you start chaptering, you start checking out of everywhere. Once you visit SIF, you're going to the house, right?
Yeah,
And you don't
yeah.
really, yeah,
And
you,
the clock goes off at 6 a.m, and you get to
yeah,
look at it, and you don't have to get up. You
exactly.
really, you're not
Or
getting up anymore to go into
that
work. You're
the
not.
fur on your face starts showing up, right? And the fur on your face changes the way you perceive yourself. And then you're not waking up at 5 a.m. You're not going running for an hour and 20 minutes every day. You're not forcing yourself to do all these things. So your body composition changes, and it changes like this. It's not like it takes it a while, right? It is 100%. It changes on you. Your pace of life changes on you. Your purpose is gone, right? You don't have a why anymore, because your why was America. Your why was the people. Your why was the brothers to your right and your left. And that was your why. You got up every morning because you had been there long enough that you were now whose eyes all those young kids looked up to lead them and keep them alive. And you had purpose and all these things, and now you don't. Who am I now? Why am I even here? Right. And a lot of men get stuck right there. Right. And that's why we started Camp Hope, is because we were all getting stuck, man. We were getting stuck, and the VA just wanted to throw a pill at me and tell me that it was going to be okay. I need to take these pills for 3 months and then come back and say, well, what else am I going to do besides shove a pill down my neck? Right? You got nothing else for me to do, right? You got nothing to bide my time when I'm sitting over there worried about all of these things, and that's another thing. When you get out of the military and you were combat arms, you were wired to see danger, right? Kind of like a mother is wired to see danger for her babies. You were just wired to see it. That's all you notice in your pattern recognition is danger, right? So you have to deprogram that, and you have to deprogram all of these things. And there was no help back then, right? There was no help. That we were getting it wrong in droves. We were losing, the official government statistic was 22 a day to suicide back then. And, and if the government statistic says 22, it's more like 32, right? And we were losing, I was losing a friend a week there for a hot minute. I was getting a call once every week, once every 3 weeks. Hey, man, so-and-so took his life, man. They found him dead, and that was the thing, is we hit this impasse and we have no purpose and we don't know who we are. And then, our wives, if you're married, they see that. And then women, they don't really think about what you're struggling with. Well, your spouse doesn't really think about what you're struggling with. So they start pushing you because they've been around you in the military for the last 20 years and they see how you're motivated and you're not anymore. So they start talking that trash. Well, you don't take it like you used to. You take it as an insult now because you have no purpose. You're unsure of who you are. So then your marriage starts to break down because communication breaks down. And there was literally nothing to help with that. And, I met a few guys. I was kind of force met. What happened to me was I got out, I just kind of struggled with identity, but I went to work, and I was always trying to find the next best thing. And when I had gotten out of the Army the first time, my first enlistment, I went to work in the oil business. I went to work on a drilling rig. And, I really learned the oil business. And I like the oil business because it was the drilling side was structured just like the military, right? You get out there, there's one man in charge of the whole rig. He's your commander. They call him the company man, the CEO. All right. And then you have a tool pusher who is the enlisted side, the blue collar side. And he's in charge of all the roughnecks on the drilling rig. And roughnecks are who run the drilling rig. So you get out there and there's a chain of command, there's structure, there's food twice a day. You have a job, right? And there's mentorship. And so it was a really easy transition for me to go into the oil business. But, the oil business is very cyclical, and you can become very poor just as quick as you can become very wealthy. And, back then it was rough. And so, I got out of the oil business, went back in the military. And then when I retired, we did Camp Hope. And did you want to talk about some of the Camp Hope stuff? What?
Yeah, you know what? Go ahead and talk about how, in its developmental phase, you met with Gene Burwell actually is the mind behind Camp Hope. He wanted to kind of put this thing together. He financed it. He put a lot of things together, and how you influenced that immensely. And he put a lot of faith in you.
Yeah, he did. And so did David Mosby.
Did Dave Mosby. And there's a lot of key issues.
Gene Burwell.
I'll say this. You have a lot of history.
I do. I'll say this live. Gene Burwell is the reason that Camp Hope exists. All right. He was the one that God put it on his heart to fund it. Right. But David Mosby is the reason that we got to do what we wanted to do. And because he listened to me, I fought him. Oh, we fought. God, did we ever fight? And we fought and fought and fought until Camp Hope started to really take form. And I wanted it to be Jesus heavy, right? I wanted it to be AA heavy, NA heavy, and have a ton of accountability, because that is what I had noticed over my 2 years. Because when I separated, man, I went through it. right? And when I went through it, I mean, I went through it. I went back to work after I got out. Spent a couple of years just trying to figure out who I was. Went through a really bad divorce. My wife at the time, my daughter's mother, she was an E8 at First Hunt, and she was looking to pick up E9. So she was still focused on her career. I couldn't even rub two pieces of wood together, start a fire. I couldn't figure out who I wanted to be. There was just, I had no spark. So our marriage didn't really work out. I was being a jackass of champions, right? But in my defense, I mean, I wasn't getting treated fairly there either. We just lost communication breakdown, like I was talking about earlier. And, that happened. It was literally commonplace for me to lose my emotional sobriety, argue. I had really alienated myself, right? And what it all boiled down to was everybody was telling me I needed to get help back then, but I didn't want to listen to them because I thought they were all crazy. But in reality, I had probably my cheese had slid off my cracker a little bit, and I had to learn how to hold myself accountable, and that was the hardest thing for me, was to admit, one, that I had a problem, and then two, to admit that that problem was pretty bad. And so, we at Camp Hope, we just started really holding men accountable. Like, they'd come in and have a thousand excuses of why their life was all jacked up. And then I just literally look at them, smile, and say, no, you are the only reason your life is messed up. Right? Yes. All of this stuff has contributed to shaping you and pushing you into who you have become. But at the end of the day, we choose who we are. Right. I refuse in the United States of America to listen to anybody say that they are a victim of their environment here, when all you have to do is pick up and move. Now, yes, is life going to be tough? Yes. Are you going to be hungry a few days? Yes. But if you don't like your circumstances in the United States of America, you can change your spot. A leopard in the U.S. can change his spots, period. I've done it more than once. So, and everybody's going to say, oh, well, you're white and you're this and you're that. Well, no, I'm just motivated, right? And I don't make excuses for who I am, right? It wouldn't matter if I was purple. We would still be pushing the way that we're pushing, because I don't know about you, Siebert, but at the end of that whole horrible part of my life where I couldn't put anything together, when I got ready to be different, when I knew that I needed help, I told everybody in my life, hey, I need help. Right. And I don't care what it looks like, as long as it helps me out of this hole that I'm in. And that for me looked like accountability, truth, and tough love. Right. Now, not everybody responds to tough love. I get it. But man, you're military. Right. Right. That's what you were taught. So, I find it really hard to believe that, and I hear this out of the young guys a lot now, because I still do a little mentoring and helping people to pull them out of their crazy, right? I don't walk with them like I used to. I don't have time. I have kids and other obligations now. But, back then I used to have, all the time in the world, and I would walk with these men for, golly. I mean, me and Zach, we stayed together, Zach Alexander. That kid and I, we walked together for like 6 years before he got out and really started to fly, and it takes a while for men to understand, unless you're really willing to get better right away. You kind of got to be.
And Zach, just so you know, Zach Alexander, another combat vet, another guy, went to Camp Hope, came back, a mentor for Camp Hope. Then he got out and he's doing his own thing. Matter of fact, you went and just saw Zach not too long ago. You just
I did. He's up in Steamboat Springs, Colorado, for Steamboat Christian Center. He does the regen program up there. He is basically the recovery pastor.
Awesome.
So he teaches a big class up there, and then he also works over at a halfway house helping guys get sober. So, it's pretty awesome to watch these guys once they decide that they don't want to be like that anymore. Once they decide that they want to change their spots, and when they do make that decision, they get motivated to do it. It's really cool to watch, and it's really cool to do as yourself, as and I mean. But, when you make that decision to not go to jail anymore, to not fight every time somebody runs their mouth, to not try to impose your will on people, to admit that you're wrong, to admit maybe you have an addiction problem, or that you're not who you try to portray, and you take that skin off, that fake skin, and you now you're standing out in the middle of everyone and who you were meant to be. It can be tough, and that's the cool thing about Camp Hope is these guys, they start figuring out who they really are and what they really truly believe. And, once you've kind of figured out who you are and what you want to do, right, it's kind of hard to stop a combat vet when they make up their mind to go do something. And that's the cool thing. And that's also why there's 22 a day dying, right? You can't stop a man when he decides to do something, especially combat veterans. I'll say it over and over and over. But the message is you don't have to die, man. There are men out here that have put it all back together, right? And that are willing to help you put it back together. That's the cool thing about it.
And that is the cool thing. And one of the things, that I like to see, and we have these warrior groups at Camp Hope. It's not just for Camp Hope. We have a lot of these mentors just doing these warrior groups. And from these warrior groups, it may even prevent some guys from having to go to Camp Hope. It prevents, some guys get some mentoring. They start feeling like they can speak. They start finding out who they are within the groups. And then they find their pathway in a little bit better manner. And it may even prevent them from committing suicide. And they're like, hey,
Definitely.
now I have this camaraderie group. I get to feel like I'm part of something again. And, take you, for example, and we're going to continue to have your story. You went to Camp Hope, man. You were a mentor. You did all these things. You poured your heart and soul into it, and it felt good. But, you needed to go a different direction because you found some other cool things in your life that took you to where you are now. You're able to go down a path where you have a job, you have you're a business owner, and now you're still mentoring guys, but it's outside the realm of, you don't just have to be sucked into, I can only be at Camp Hope. I can only be a mentor. I can only be, a veteran. I can only be a retired VA veteran guy. No, you can be a living guy outside of that. Take advantage
100%.
of veteran opportunities and thrive. So continue with that
100%.
story.
And here's the thing, right? Like, and I'm not going to lie and ever, right? That's a lot of people call me an asshole. And like I told you earlier, I will be that asshole, right? I'm that asshole that when you need me, I show up with a shovel. I talk trash to you, but I help you dig yourself out, right? And I will help you dig yourself out once.
That's right.
All right. Once. I'm not going to help you dig yourself out twice, right? I will come. I will talk trash to you. I will show you the way. But if you go and you rebury yourself in that same hole, you're on your own, right? And that's the cool thing about camp. When we were putting Camp Hope together, it went 3 or 4 different ways at first, and the only way that I could really see it going was where it's at now. A group of guys with a really strong mentor that is really unafraid to just hurt their feelings and tell them how life is. And this is it, man. I'm sorry you were raised in a single mama household, but I'm your dad right now. And this is what we're going to do, because in recovery, you have to have a mentor, right? You have to, right? It's the way that it's been proven to work. And so with those guys, I see a lot of time, and I am going to talk a little trash on them. I see a lot of guys just get really comfortable being what I call professional disabled vets, right? And, I had a friend the other day just 100% just call me, just excited to the gills about how he just got 100%. And, 15 years ago, man, I would have celebrated with him, right? And, he's talking about what all he's going to do. And, God really hit me right then. He was just like, dude, you couldn't, what would you even do? Like, that man he is 100% lit up like a bulb for $4,100 a month. Man, that ain't going to pay one of my freaking mortgages, excuse my language. But I mean, I have bills, right? Like, and, so I sit here and I listen to these guys and I see how brilliant these men are, and they are just smart enough that they just hobble themselves forever, getting free stuff off the VA, not wanting to go to work, not taking all those skills that they learned and actually turning it into something that could make them very, very wealthy, right? And I mean, they literally, when you're in the military, you were taught all the cheat codes of success, all of them, discipline, right? Virtuousness, all of these things that you need in business to basically just pave your own way. Right. And I'm not I'm not like most men, right? Like when I left Camp Hope, it wasn't because I really wanted to leave Camp Hope. It was because my soul was exhausted. I had been there 14 years on and off. And when I left, it was, I was engaged to a woman and she just went off the deep end, which shook my foundational core, which also let me see how well I can use my own toolkit. Right. Because when we left, we had to split an empire. It was no contact. It was overnight. So it was this giant shock to my system. Then one of my best friends runs off with my baby sister. They were both married to other people who I was friends with. And so I went into Camp Hope and I said, man, I need a sabbatical. And we basically just, they looked at me and they were like, yeah, well, you're pretty bad. And I just said, hey, whatever you need to do. Right. But I was just wasted at that time, not wasted in a bad way, just hurt. And so I got to use my toolkit and I left Camp Hope. And for about 9 months, I stayed close to my parents. I made meetings, AA meetings, and I just felt all of that pain and all that betrayal and all of the things that I had 14 and a half, 15 years of good work towards. And I got to really test that. And so,
Wow.
yeah, and it was tough, Aaron. It really was because, we had a blended family. We were at that point earning around $500,000 combined income together. I mean, we had a really nice house, a really nice ranch. It was fairy tale, but it was fairy tale because I wasn't paying attention to what I needed to be paying attention to, which is my family. I was more worried about the vets and what they had going on and where I needed to be to keep that dude's pistol out of his mouth and this and that. And I had neglected my family to the point where it had backfired on me. And so that was another thing that I had to walk with is you can get compassion fatigue with helping these guys and it can really destroy your life. But, I got to use my toolkit. It took me about a year to really get to where I could breathe again. And, in the middle of that, I was just kind of doing some investment things here and there. And, I wasn't really motivated, but it got to where I was looking and I was like, man, I need to do something else because, I'm a God-fearing man. I love Jesus Christ. And the Bible tells me that I need to leave my kids land and riches. Well, riches is subjective, if you ask me, to whatever a man desires, whatever he sees as treasure. But land is not. So, I decided that I was just going to retire and buy a little place and give my kids a tiny little inheritance and just be retired and, just live life. And I bought a little house cash and I was living here in Cold Springs. And my best friend called me and he was like, I know you hate the oil business, but do you mind coming and helping me out? And so I went and I helped him out, and we just had this, opportunity to invest in a couple wells that were old, what's called orphan wells, where, a big company drills these wells and then they get overextended and then the price of oil crashes and those mid-size oil companies go out of business all the time. And they just leave these wells for the government, right? Because there's no money to plug them or anything like that. So we went out and we took a couple orphan wells and we looked at them and we thought, hey, you know what? I think we can make these make oil. And so we started working on them. And sure enough, out of the 4 projects that we did last year, we put 3 wells online, 3 oil wells online. And, it's we're not making a ton of oil, but the way that we're looking at it is if we put 3 wells online for the next 10 years, we'll have about 30 oil wells online producing that make us anywhere from 1 to 3 loads a month. And, that's a very, very sustainable living for 2 men and their families. So, it's kind of one of those things. And, we were talking about that earlier, you and I were, but you got to choose your heart, man. You can sit back and take your 100% from the VA and just barely get by, driving a Nissan Sentra, living in a little bitty house. And if you're okay with that kind of life, then by all means, I'm not knocking you if that's what you want to do. But there is such a world out there, and all you got to do is take what you've learned in the military, and be moral, be virtuous, and take chances, right? Because I know for a fact that most military men like to gamble. right? Especially infantrymen, right? Like we'll run into a burning building, we'll jump out of a perfectly good airplane. So, there was nothing holding me back from when we had this opportunity to take these wells and try to make something with them. I just pulled a HELOC on one of my homes. So I had the working capital to start this business. And that's what we did. I mean, yeah, is it put one of the houses that I paid cash for, is it put it in jeopardy? Yeah, but it's just money. And let me tell you something, Aaron, it's just money, right? And you can either take the chance or you can work for somebody that did. And I know so many combat vets, right, that just have problems working for other men. Well, get out there and take a chance, right? Get out there and find something that you love to do and look at it and figure out a way for it to make you money. I had a woman look at me a few years back, and she basically said, well, how are you going to support us? Right. And I'm no longer with this woman or anything, but it was motivation. And I'm saying this to all those men out there that, you get beat down every now and then by some mean comments from your mama or your old lady or whatever. But this woman said, well, what if I just wanted to be a park ranger? And at the time, man, we were making $500,000 a year together. Like, what are you talking about? A park ranger? Park rangers only make $55,000 a year, and that's on the high end. And I told her, I said, well, if you want to be a park ranger, you need to get used to a lower set of lifestyle principles, right? And after she did me dirty like that, it just kind of gave me that motivation to go back and really just kind of look at her now and go, man, you could have been a park ranger, right? Like literally, you could have done whatever you wanted to do, and we could have kept living this lifestyle because, it's kind of one of those things that, you can either believe what the devil's whispering in your ear, or you can believe what God's screaming in your soul, right? And what God screams in your soul, and I know this to be true for me, is get up. The fight's not over. Keep swinging, right? I can promise you, man, as a military man, if you swing long enough, it's going to connect eventually. And when it connects, you may win the fight, right? Or you may get a whooping, right? But nobody ever won a fight sitting in the bleachers. Nobody ever won a fight not balling their fists up and swinging, right? Nobody ever won anything sitting around being passive.
That's right.
And
that's right.
If that's what you want for your life, then I get it. I guess I don't really get it because, man, all it takes is one person to speak something good into your life, one chance that you take and that oil well hits, right? You just have to get out and fight, right? You have to be in the fight. You can't be sitting back. Like I see so many vets right now sitting back, and that's exactly what the evil people that are puppeteers right now, they want us to sit back and not be successful business owners. They want us to believe that we need to go take their VA pills all the time and stay in a state of comatose crap where you're walking around with a headache and you feel like you've been drugged. They want you to believe that you ain't shit. Right? That's what they want. You know why? Because there are so many good leaders that are sitting at home right now taking a mouthful of pills thinking that they can't get through that stuff, that could carry their butts over to Camp Hope, let another man tell them some business about their life and get better. Right? It's sitting there right now. And I know the best way to do that is to get a hold of you, and you can help people. These days I don't really take people to camp, but I can facilitate it, but really just get out there and do something. Quit sitting in your hole.
Yeah, that's the thing. It's everybody's pathway is something cool. And really this is what's cool about having you on. Your pathway has been gloomy at times. It's been, and right now it seems like it's an awesome pathway, and you're an inspiration to some veterans that maybe are going to look at that, right? And the one thing that I tell veterans all the time, I'm like, some people get caught up. Sometimes they'll stop me. They'll be like, hey man, why do you call it PTSD? Shouldn't you just call it PTS? I'm like, I don't care what it's called. I want to know what you're doing about it. That's really,
let's word police. Like that's going to help you. Yeah.
Before you're all caught up in the name and you're trying to get it all, locked out like that. Let's get to the point where, what are you doing about it? And what are you doing about it that's positive? And what are you doing about it that's positive? Because you could tell me all the things that you're doing about it that's crazy. Like I'm just drinking myself to oblivion. I'm taking all the pills that I possibly can. I'm not engaged in any kind of warrior group. I'm not engaged in any kind of connection with people. I'm just isolating in my house and I'm letting the bills go. There's all kinds of problems out there, but there's all kinds of solutions. You could be 100% and have all kinds of volunteer stuff that you're doing, incredible things that you're doing, and fighting kind of weird systems that you don't know, life hacks that you're doing. And Sam, you're doing all these life hacks and knocking it out, and having God on your side is super important. And
for me, Aaron, you're right. You're right. But for me, man, it is literally about one thing, right? I'm not going to fail. I'm not going to fail. I didn't join the military to become a failure. I didn't join the military to sit on the side of the road with a cardboard sign and ask for a little bit of money. I didn't join the military to get a free check from the VA. No, I joined the military to get me the hell out of that town, to start me on a path that I wasn't going to be able to be stopped from. Right. And that's the thing, right? Like, you hear all this stuff about, well, we need another generation like the greatest generation of World War II. Well, those men got up and went to work every damn day. They didn't go to the VA and stand in line for pills. They didn't do any of that. No, they got up and they went to work and they pushed through it and they made something out of America, right? The 50s were what? The greatest time in the whole world, they say. It was just perfect and this and that. Well, those men were all combat vets. Right. And those women had supported them in the factories. Right. So everybody had a sense of purpose. Everybody had a sense of well-being. Right. So when you're sitting there and you're alone, and I'm talking to the guys that are listening to this right now that don't believe that they can do anything, or that they want to tell themselves that they're bored with what they're doing, or life is just one big boring piece of crap. Well, unless you're a multi-millionaire, I don't want to hear that. Right. I don't want to hear any of that. Right. Because you got to get out there and you got to make something of your life. Right. And, I hear these young kids talk about the game. They call life the game. Well, cool. You're not really playing, are you? You're not out in the game, because the only way to win a game is to play it. Right. And, I failed so many times, Aaron, it's pathetic. I couldn't tell you how many times I failed, but I didn't fail on a few things. Right. I didn't fail on the ability to keep getting up and swinging. I didn't fail on the ability to understand that there is a creator God out there that wants nothing but the best for my life, but he is not going to do it for me, right? He's going to hand me a shovel and tell me to get to digging, right? And my friends and my military friends, that's a lifelong commitment, right? That's a lifelong commitment to check on my buddies, for my buddies to check on me. I got a guy in Arkansas right now, and he's a pastor, and he's this and he's that, but he just won't pick up the phone and call. So I think we're fixing to have to drive in there and go put eyes on the guy, even if he gets mad at me. Right. I don't care. Right. Like, I just want to see these guys, and I want to make sure that they're doing well. And, guys, for all of you that are sitting out there wanting to do something with your life and you're scared, it doesn't get any easier. Take the damn chance now. All right. Because you're going to hate yourself if you didn't. Right. You really will. Like, I could have said, no, I don't want to do this. And I pushed my best friend. I pushed him hard. He didn't want to go do this stuff. We took that chance. And we've gotten three producing oil wells. You can't really argue when you take something that was nothing and you turn it into something that's making you 15, 20 grand a month. Right. Just think about that. Right. 15, 20 grand a month. Right. On each well. Right. And then you do that times 3, times 5, times 30. Right. So then you look back and I'm talking to all you professional DVs out there that think $4,100 a month is a payday. All right. Right. You are selling yourself so short. Get out there, take the chance. If you get knocked down, get up and swing again. If you get knocked down, get up and swing again. All right. Like, I literally thought I was going to die 4 years ago. I lost 100. When that woman left me, I thought I was done. And now, man, right? We're sitting here talking about taking a field in Oklahoma, another 13 wells, and what that's going to look like. And so, your life is what you make of it. Yes, God does. He shapes your life. If you're listening to him, though, and you're willingly walking with him, he won't open the wrong doors for you. Right now, you may get a door open and you may have to open that thing 2 or 3 times before it finally swings all the way open. And you may have to work on the hinges. Right. You may. It's called life. You're going to have to work. Right. Nothing comes easy. And nobody gives a damn if you did 3 years in the military. right? Walking around with your Navy hat on or your Marine Corps hat on, Desert Storm vet, Operation Ragged Freedom vet. Cool, bro. Cool. What are you doing now? Right? What are you doing now? Where's your why? What is your motivation? And if you can't find it, there are hundreds of men out there that will help you. So don't be afraid. Don't be afraid to admit, hey, I might need some help trying to figure out where I'm headed. I have a mentor. I have 3. So
Yeah, it's absolutely amazing to see these mentors too. And I will say, as much as I spend talking to vets and even putting some of these guys on some really awesome paths, they become my mentors in their pathways because I really get to see their journeys and where they've gone. And it's really cool to see that they're thriving or, the ones that aren't thriving either. It's good to be, this is a check for me as well. It's humbling for me to just be in this position. I'm honored to be able to help guys out, get to Camp Hope and get them the help that they need, be able to talk to you, reconnect like this, and have you come on my show and just kind of say, hey, this is what it's about. Because this is what the show is about. It's about, connections, and it's about someone's going to need this show. And what I use this for is I'll be like, hey man, get on here, look at these shows, see which one you might want. It may resonate with you and it may be something that you need. It's another force multiplier to someone's life. And so thanks for being here. Thanks for telling your story, and thanks for, what you got. So,
and that's another thing. Just, I know we're coming to the end of it, but that's another thing for all you men that are sitting out there, your wife left you or whatever. Just get up and go be somebody, right? Because the moment that you get up and you find purpose and you start going and being somebody, God is going to put the right person in your life, right? You're going to find love. You're going to find happiness, right? You're going to find completion, but you got to be out looking for it, right? I hear all the time these people talking about, well, I'm waiting on God. Well, don't wait too long. Because I can tell you this, the Apostle Paul said it best, right? It's better to be a tent maker, right? Better get out there and start making some tents, because those that don't work don't eat, right? And the Apostle Paul said that. He said, if you don't work, you don't eat, right? So don't be sitting there waiting on God's blessings if you're not putting in the work, right? You got to put in the work.
Definitely, and that's kind of how I do things as well. Because I can only help those that really want to help. I can't just be spending all of my time and effort on those that don't want to be involved in warrior groups or don't want to be involved in Camp Hope, or if you don't want it, that's one thing. But if you're ready for it, then by all means, I'm ready to help you get it. And it's not me; it's all the guys at Camp Hope. It's all the help and support that's out there. It's guys like you. I don't know anything about oil wells, but you know what? You just explained something to me that was super rad. To know that, that's the business that you're in, and that's such a cool business to know about. I mean, that's a cool lesson in itself. It's an honor to be here with you today to get that mentor on. Hey man, there's these little oil wells out there that, people just shut down because they can't do it. And that, you have a job where you go out and do that, and you probably maintain them and keep them running. And that's, you take them over and you own the company and you own this thing. How cool is that? For somebody,
well, it's scary as hell. I can promise you that. it is not for the weak. When oil goes from $80 to $50 a barrel overnight, it can be rough, right? But that message there is just take the chance, grow smartly, grow small, right? You don't want to get overextended, grow small, and just grow, and I don't know if there's a business term out there because I'm a redneck from East Texas. But, the way I like to say it is, if you don't have the money to do it, don't. Right? Yeah. You don't get over leveraged. You just kind of just save your money in one project at a time. And if you stay within that, you've got your Army retirement, you've got your $4,100 a month in your VA, right? Learn how to budget that and then start your business, right? But just stay in your VA budget at first. Like when I started this business, man, everybody acts like, oh, I got lucky. No, I sold my ranch, right? I became poor for the first time in a long time. I moved into a very small house in town, right? And I geared down, and that's what we're doing right now. I shrank my life all the way down because I believe that God has something better for me. And if I give it all back, right, what is he going to give me? He's going to give me 10 times more. And that's just how it's been working. So, yeah, every now and then it's a tight month. Every now and then we don't make a lot of money. Every now and then it costs money to be in this business. But if you don't get overextended, if you don't live above your means and you take it slow, eventually you look up and you're fine. And I hope that everybody heard me when I said that. And if you want ideas, if you need help, anybody can get a hold of me. They just need to go through you.
Yeah, definitely. I was just going to say, any last words, feel free to throw those out there. And if they want to get a hold of you, any way to get a hold of you, whatever information you want to put out there, do it. If not, they can definitely do it through me. I always tell everybody, if you want to get a hold of any of my guests or any of these guys, definitely hit me up. I will reach out to them and get a hold of them for you. And we'll go that route.
Yeah, man. I got one last thing to tell everybody out there.
Send it.
Man, I said it earlier, you can take the chance or work for somebody that did, right? And think about that, right? Because at the end of your life, right, we're going to stand before God naked and all of our deeds, right? So just make sure that you're okay with what you're standing there for, right? And make sure that that's what you want to be there for. Right. So you look at your life right now, and if you're struggling, reach out, talk to Aaron. He'll help you. If you want to talk to me, get a hold of Aaron. I will call you back. Right. Because why wouldn't I give it away? You have to give it away to keep it. Right. And I'm not here to be any better than any other man. I will help everybody up. Right. So just stay focused. Right. Stay disciplined. And if you're struggling, pick up the phone and call somebody. Right. It's not just your burden to bear. Right. Put your ego away. You know what ego stands for, right? It's an acronym, Aaron. And I'll leave y'all with that.
Yeah, send it.
Send it. Etching God out. EGO. Etching God out. When you hold on to your ego and you're going to do this alone, you just basically just etch God right out of the picture. So put your ego down, ask for some help, and then be willing to walk where God wants you to walk. Right? And that's what I got.
Hey, definitely. Hey, Sam, thank you very much for being on the show, brother. Much love. And hey, it's great to reconnect. And thanks for doing this at such a short notice. Hey, it's such a great, cool thing to have these guests on deck. I never know what's going to come. It's not like I prep them for anything or other than the fact that I say, hey, this is what it's kind of about. But the bottom line is that there's a lot of information out there. That's their story, and they get to come in and talk about why or what they're doing and what their story is and what their mentorship looks like. And, it's just an honor to have it. It's an honor to have this platform. Thanks to JB Brown for Chef JB Brown, United States Coast Guard for he's usually my co-host, but he's been super busy doing all kinds of chef stuff, starting up a restaurant in support of some kids and some things that he's going to talk about in the near future. Hopefully we'll have him on deck next week as well. A whole bunch of other things, and Brian Colburn, SitchRadio.com for doing the buttons in the background, making sure all this happens. And all the other support networks, Warrior Built Foundation, the PTSD Foundation, all the things that I'm involved in, Recon Chief Incorporated, to so many other nonprofits that are out there. If you want to get on my show, hit me up, let me know. I will definitely take it into consideration. Most of the guests I have on this show are all people that I know. Very rare, probably only about 10 to about 12 guests that I've had on this show is somebody that was either suggested to me or somebody that I did not know or didn't have some sort of relationship with. But until next time, thank you for listening. And if this helps you out, please let me know. Please reach out sometime and just throw me a note. If you like the show, just throw a like. I guess everybody always says put the thumbs up. Never been one of those guys yet, but until next time, strength and honor. Out.
The only way, and we need nothing more. The only way, together forever, that's for sure.